everyone, welcome to A Stitch in Time. Today is Thursday, September 25th, 2025, and this is episode 315. I'm Carol, also known as Knits and Pearls on Ravelry, and I live east of Vancouver in the Fraser Valley of British Columbia, Canada. I hope you're all doing well and that you've had a good 3.5 weeks since we last spoke. I'm feeling incredibly rusty. I've recorded this intro at least 10 times, so here's hoping goes smoothly from here on out. I also have a little bit of a tickle in my throat, so I'm hoping I don't have to stop and cough. I'm also feeling a little self-conscious because my mom's going to be watching this. Hi, Mom. I avoided telling members of my family about this podcast for a very long time. And I didn't actually tell my mom. My husband accidentally let it slip. I'm not sure why. I just feel really self-conscious thinking that people I know are actually going to see it. But anyway, I have a very special segment later on, which is a chat with my mom about her knitting journey, knitting experience. And so I couldn't not let her watch it, right? So I hope you will enjoy that. Yeah, life has gone by in a bit of a blur these last few weeks. First we had our son's wedding, and then a few days later I went to Norway with my mom, one of my sisters, and one of my nieces. We came back on Saturday, and then on Tuesday I took my mom home, stayed over, and came back yesterday. And so this is my first full day back in my house with nobody here all day. Well, Cameron's at work, and it feels really good. It was great to be away, and we had lots of fun things going on, but I am looking forward to a little bit more of a normal life for the next little while, and just a chance to really settle in and get some crafting done. I feel like I've had a lot of small projects lately and haven't really had the chance to really get my meat into something big. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a good fall season. Before I show you a couple things that I've been working on, just a reminder, there is a make-along taking place in the Ravelry group called Stash Spectacular. It is a super casual year-long chatter thread in which we are showing off all the things that we're making from our yarn, pattern, and fiber stash. Now that things are a little bit calmer, I'm hoping to be more of a participant myself. I've really slacked off this year in the make-along department. Okay, first up, a pair of socks that I don't remember how far along I was on these the last time I recorded, but they're now finished. I finished these before I went away. It's a pair of socks that I knit from some hand spun from Chaotic Fibres. It is a merino nylon blend. I did a chain ply with dubious results. There are some portions of these socks that are extremely thick and stiff, while other parts are more as they should be. But I was drawn to these colors. They reminded me of popsicles, and so I've called them my popsicle socks. And it's just another learning experience. That's how I'm really looking at this whole hand spinning journey. So I don't have the details in front of me as far as how many stitches I cast on. It'll be on my project page. There'll be a link to all of my project pages and everything else I talk about down below in the show notes. But it was a 2x2 rib top-down sock with a traditional heel flap and gusset and rounded toe. This is my usual plain vanilla sock. So I think this is this is the thicker of the two. They have been washed and blocked, but they haven't been worn yet. This is the better of the two. Definitely thinner, more consistent spinning, and yeah, just a better overall finished finished product, but happy to have them done. They are not matchy just because of, well, partly with how I divided the braid, partly how I spun it, but they are fraternal twins. You can tell they go together. And they're for me, so I'm not too concerned about it. All right, I need a sip of tea. Got my fall mug out now. The season has changed. Good. I only have one other finished project, and that is a pair of socks that I knit throughout my trip to Norway. I'm calling them my Mountains and Fjords and Waterfalls socks. They are knit, oh, where'd my label go? Got stuff all over. My spare table is set up in here again. I'm sitting here and it's absolutely covered with things. I chose this yarn from Regia. It's the Mountain and Fjords design line by Arna and Carlos. And I thought it would be fitting for my trip to Norway. And even more fitting was I was digging through my sock yarn leftovers for some yarn to use for some coordinating heels. And I found this yarn from Lorna's Laces. It's the shepherd sock, and I knit my mother-in-law a pair of socks with it like ages and ages and ages ago. But the colorway name is Fjord. So I thought, okay, that settles it. Not only did it complement this yarn well, come on, it fit with the theme. So these were cast on before I left home, worked on during the trip, and then I finished the last bit of the foot on the second sock and the toe once I got home. So I think I finished these on Monday. So I haven't washed and blocked them yet, but you get the idea. This yarn is so fun. Like, look how cool it knits up. I have my usual plain vanilla sock, 64 stitches on a 2mm needle, and as you can see, traditional heel flap and gusset, and again, my usual rounded toe. I have something in my eye, so if I'm blinking excessively, that's why. Anyway, yeah, these were fun to work on. I've knit lots of good memories into them, and yeah, there'll be a special pair of socks for sure. And, oh, and if that wasn't enough, I didn't look at the colorway name until I was doing my show notes this morning. And this is colorway 7031 Sognefjord. And that is a fjord that we visited. We did a cruise on the one of the arms of the I can't say it, Sognefjord. I'm trying. Anyway, like, who knew? I did not realize that before I left home. So that makes them even more special. So that was really, really cool to discover this morning. So I am looking forward to wearing those this fall. Okay, another sip of tea and I'll show you what I've been working on since I got home. I had cast on 2 different socks to take with me on my trip, all Arna and Carlos Regia yarns inspired by Norway. But as you can see, I only managed to really significantly work on one. But as soon as I finished those socks, I picked up this yarn. And this is part of the Lofoten design line. So we did not go to Lofoten, that's more northwest Norway. We were more central out to the fjords. This is color 3884 and it's called, oh, I have to look, I haven't got my glasses on. Leknes. I'm gonna assume that's a place, I didn't look it up. But I thought these would be fun to work on, and they are. I've done a few socks from this Lofoten line already, and they're so fun how they knit up. And then I chose this yarn from West Yorkshire Spinners to do a coordinating heel flap and gusset. So this is color 530 and the name of it is Pennyroyal. So I thought it kind of picked up that purpley line that's going through the sock. So again, usual plain vanilla sock, 2mm needles, 64 stitches, 2x2 rib. We'll have a traditional heel flap and gusset also. So I'm about, I think about 1/2 inch or so from doing the heel. So actually done a fair bit on these since I got home, just because I haven't had any brain space for anything else. And that is the end of my works in progress. Having said that, I have a couple of pairs of socks that I was working on prior to my trip that I'm actually going to frog. So I thought I would at least just show them to you briefly before I do. Pardon my reach. I think last episode, I showed you this yarn that I had gotten, sort of a souvenir yarn for our trip to Regina. And this is from Midnight Cravings, and this is the Queen City colorway. It's the light sock base. And I think I'm ready for the heel. Kind of knit up in a cool way there, but overall, I don't know. I just didn't like all the way it was pooling and stuff. So I think what I'm going to do is take this out and do a patterned sock with it, and that should distribute those colors a little bit differently, a little bit more pleasing to my eye anyway. But I needed something to work on, and that was good. It gave me knitting to do, and so if I do some unknitting, not a big deal. And then, excuse my reach again, I also cast on this yarn from All Points North. I had bought this earlier in the summer up in a community that's about an hour's drive from where our family cabins are. This is Season's Turn, and I thought it would be fitting for this time of year. And again, loving the yarn, not loving how it's knitting up in a plain sock. I'm toying with the idea of doing a Musselburgh hat with this, or again, maybe a patterned sock. So again, gave me the entertainment value I needed at the time, but I'm going to frog this and start over with something else. So not a waste of time, just nothing much to show for it. Okay, on to acquisitions. Before I left for our trip, I did have a couple of things come in the mail. So I realized I had received a gift certificate to Bad Anna's yarn store in Vancouver for my 60th birthday, like a year and a half ago. And I finally got around to spending it. So I ordered a couple of skeins of sock yarn from a new to me dyer. Again, this one I had sort of the idea of having some souvenir yarn from our trip to the prairies this summer. So this is Fireweed Fibre Co. and it's dyed in Winnipeg, Manitoba. We didn't go that far, but this colorway is Prairie Skies, and we certainly saw a lot of prairie skies while we were traveling, and so that just seemed fitting to me. This is the violet sock base, which is in 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon base. So that will be probably socks. And then this one I thought would be nice for pair of socks for Cameron, my husband. This is the Wood Lily sock base, which is an 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon. And if you don't know, Whiskey Jack is another name for the gray jay or Canada jay. They're fondly known as Whiskey Jacks. And if you are at a picnic table in the woods and you pull out your lunch or your trail mix or something, all of a sudden they will appear and want in on the fun. So I think they're also called camp robbers for that reason. So those are the things. So I got that sock yarn before I left home. I had been watching trying to think of the podcast name, Love in Stitches podcast with Natalie, who is Nitty Natty. And she and her husband, Kent, have been making their way across Canada this year. And I've been enjoying seeing the different episodes from the various provinces. And they've been trying out certain foods and visiting yarn shops and also some other yarn related businesses. And one place they visited was the Longway Homestead, which is actually owned by the past owner of Bad Anna's Yarn Shop. I think that's probably what twigged my memory about having that gift certificate tucked away. Anyway, during the episode where Natalie visited this business, they talked about this Fibre club. And so I decided I would join, and I chose the spinning option. And so every month you get a new breed. It's called the Breed of the Month Club. And this month it's Targhee. So this came just before I went away. And so it came sealed. This was a vacuum sealed package. So it was super flat, and then open it up and just this thing has just poofed up so much. And I wasn't quite sure how I was supposed to spin this. I'm used to spinning off of braids of fiber. But then I realized that this little thing of yarn, I thought it was just caught in there by accident, but it actually marks the beginning of this whole, I don't know what you call it, ball of roving, bat of roving. Anyway, so it's all been, looks like more or less pre-drafted. So I think it's going to be kind of fun to spin. So I'm looking forward to trying that out. You can still see it still has some vegetable matter in it and all that, but super, super soft, just fluffy like a cloud. So that's going to be fun to try out, and I'm looking forward to just having that chance to try out all these different breeds of wool that I may not otherwise have access to. And you get a card that tells you a little bit about the wool and about the sheep. So this one says that it is good for hats, mittens, sweaters, and shawls. So it gives you a sense that it's good for next to skin. So yeah, yay. Looking forward to that. Now, I couldn't go all the way to Norway and not buy something, though I didn't really go crazy. I didn't have a specific project in mind, and I think that's part of it. We went in the first yarn shop. I scoped out 2 yarn shops in Oslo before I went. One was called me and my Norwegian accent, I don't have one. Fru Kvist. And then the other one was Heimen Hustvliden. Apologize to any Norwegians that are listening. My poor brother-in-law, he was over the other day and trying to teach me how to say the name of this particular road we were on, and I just kept messing it up. In any case, so we, our first we flew in the evening, and we stayed at an airport hotel, and then we went into Oslo the next day, and we had the afternoon free to walk around. And so I had scoped out a couple of yarn shops. My niece is also a knitter. My sister is a knitter, and my mom's a knitter. So I think Katie and I, my niece and I, were especially interested in seeing what we could find. So Fjords, it was a beautiful shop. Lots of beautiful yarns, lots of beautiful knitting accessories and things, but I just could not find anything that really grabbed me. But they did have, I wanted something, so they had these little containers with stitch markers in them. So the little light bulb markers, whoops, I just dropped one. Here, let's find one that's more of a color that will be easier to see. These things. So they had those in there, and then they had some stitch markers just that were a selection that you could just like buy one at a time. They're in a big sort of dish thing. So I picked out a couple of these teeny weeny birds. You're gonna be able to see that. They're so small. I'm just trying to see if I can put them against. Hopefully you can see that. Whoa! It's really small. So I thought these, I bought 2 of them, and I thought that would be good for, hopefully you can see that. I thought they would be good for when I knit socks. I always put a stitch marker on either side when I'm doing the gusset stitches. So I bought 2 of those, and then they had these progress keepers that were yarn balls with knitting needles. So I got a silver one and a gold one. I have to say, everything's priced in Norwegian krone, and so like you can see, 8,900 or 89 krone is what that means. For our Canadian dollar, we times that by 0.14 to get the conversion, and I didn't do any conversion, and then when I got my bill, or on my phone, it came up with an alert that my credit card had been used. And when I saw the Canadian dollars for this little tin of stitch markers, and I think it was the little individual ones that really added up, I was kind of a little bit of sticker shock, but that's okay. It's a souvenir from Norway, and it's too late now anyway. Things are very expensive over there. Found that just the first night having dinner at the restaurant in the airport, but we were there. It was what it was. That's just sort of the price of admission. So I didn't convert everything I bought. I just some things. Then we went from there. I had an address for a location of the Heimen Hustfliden, and when we got there, discovered that they didn't have any yarn at that location, but they had some beautiful folk costumes in the window and all over the store, and some other woolen goods. But they did tell us that they had another location just a couple of blocks away, and so we walked down there, and they did have this huge selection of a lot of Norwegian yarns, including the Rama garn. So many colors, so overwhelming, and again, I didn't have a specific project in mind, so I decided just to get enough yarn to do a pair of Selbu mittens. So I'm going to knit myself a pair of mittens, and that's going to be my knitting souvenir from Norway. I did purchase a few other yarns, but they are going to be for gifts, so I'm not going to show them on here just in case I give them away. But yeah, I was pretty restrained. But then you've seen my craft room. You know how much yarn I have, so I didn't feel any burning desire to bring home a lot more. Plus, I'm going to Knit City on Saturday with my daughter-in-law, Stephanie. It's her first time at a big yarn event, so I know I'm going to be picking up some things there. And also my niece Katie is going to go with her friend, so it'll be good to see her again, and yeah, good to take in all the yarn, but showed remarkable constraint, I think. So, as I mentioned, since my last episode, our younger son got married, and that went beautifully. As you saw last episode, I had knit a wedding shawl for my now daughter-in-law, Bronwyn, and so I do have a few pictures of it to show you here. I've blurred their faces because I don't know how keen they are to be on social media, so I've just made them a little more anonymous, but the wedding was beautiful. She did not wear the shawl to get married. It was warm enough without it, but later in the evening it got cool and she put it on. She did have some pictures taken with the shawl on. Unfortunately, it was on inside out, but it looked beautiful regardless. So a couple of the pictures you'll see here, it's actually inside out. But yeah, the wedding went off really well. It was at our family vacation property, and most of the guests were arriving Friday, so we had a barbecue that night, and then they got married the next morning down by the lake, which is about, I don't know, 3/4 of a kilometer or so from our property. And my son's friend had built an arch, and they had the most beautiful flowers on the arch. And the flowers themselves, the bouquets, her bouquet was gorgeous, and then all of the bridesmaids and the mums had like a wrist corsage, and then the guys all had boutonnieres. It was just very beautiful. The weather cooperated. It was perfect. And then they came back to a catered luncheon, and then everyone kind of kicked back for the afternoon and then gathered together at dinner for dinner, and gathered together at dinner, go figure, for dinner. And that's when they did the speeches and dance and cut the cake and everything. And then the next morning, most people left, and there were, I think, 12 of us left behind. We stayed till Monday and worked at tidying things up and closing up all the cabins for the winter. So that meant draining lines and things like that. And then, as I said, we came home 2 days later. Mom and I, she came home with us. She lives about 17K or 10 miles from our vacation property. So she came home with us. And then, yeah, 2 days later, we headed to Norway. So I think, as I've talked about some of like the socks and things, I'm planning to put a few pictures in for you just to give you a taste. But I haven't really gone through my photos really thoroughly and really prepared to tell you all about the trip. So I thought I would do that in a separate episode coming up sometime in the next week or so. But just suffice it to say, it was just a really, really fantastic trip with beautiful scenery. And it was very cool because I drove by the town where one of our viewers and Ravelry group members, Bente, lives. And that was just such a cool thought to be driving by and watching for the signs and following the mile markers, and just thinking that somebody who kind of knows me and I kind of know them, like, lives there. It was great for context. So what a beautiful country. Just enjoyed it so much, and I will look forward to telling you more about it. Curling started Monday night. I was worried that I would be really jet lagged, but I usually am when I come back from Europe. But we managed on Saturday to stay up close to sort of our usual bedtime, and I got up pretty well a normal time the next day, and that followed. And so I didn't really experience a lot of jet lag from this trip, thankfully. And our first game, we got off to a great start, and I think we were all thinking that was going to be a short game. But then the other team managed to claw their way back bit by bit, and going into the 8th and final end, they were up by 2. But we managed to score 3 in the 8th end to win by 1. So that was a great way to get back to curling. I feel so out of shape. My knees and my ankles and my hips were really bothering me, so I'm determined to start getting back into shape. Doing exercising more and doing some stretches and things, because I can't keep going on like that. My body was definitely screaming at me. As I mentioned, I took my mom home on Tuesday, and we went out to the cabins that afternoon to gather up some of the things that we had left out there that can't stay over the winter, like food and things like shampoo and cleaning supplies, anything that's going to freeze. Plus we had some towels to pick up that needed to be washed. So it was beautiful out there. We took a picnic lunch and sat on the porch, just enjoyed well, it wasn't exactly silent because there was quite a bit of a breeze blowing, but it was just so peaceful. It was sunny and the colors are starting to change, and I really didn't want to leave, but of course we had to eventually. But while we were there, we set up the camera, and I did a little bit of an interview with my mom about her knitting experiences. And so if you stay tuned, I will put that at the end of the episode. But before I say goodbye, it's time for something good. And I discovered a new treat in Norway. So our last full day there, just with how things worked out, I didn't really eat lunch. So when we got to our hotel, I was really hungry, but it was too close to dinner to have a meal. So I scoped out the lobby, and they had some snacks there. So I picked up a couple of snacks, and one of the things I picked up was something called Smash. And these are super addictive. If you are familiar with the salty, crispy snack called Bugles, let's see, there's a picture of them there. They're a corn-based snack that's shaped like a bugle. They take those and they cover them in chocolate for a great sweet / salty / crispy, see, sweet, salty, crispy snack. So I have not opened this. I did share. I finished off the bag that I bought, ended up buying another bag to take home, and then when I was in the airport, I found an even bigger bag. So I'm going to share the big bag with my family at Thanksgiving, and I'm saving this for myself, but I'll be very disciplined. I haven't opened it yet, but highly recommend if you have a chance to try these. They're great. So thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate, as always, all of your kind comments and engagement. So I'm hoping to be back here again in about a week's time, or a week or two. It'd be nice to get back to a regular recording schedule. I think before this year, I think I was back to every couple of weeks. We'll see. We'll see what I get done and see what kind of time I have. But if you are going to Knit City, please, if you see me, come up and say hi. I would love to meet you. And yeah, take care until the next time I see you. So if you want to meet my mom and get a little glimpse of our vacation property, then stay tuned. See you soon. I'd like you to meet my mom, Z, short for Zelia. We're out at our family cabin, sitting on the porch of what used to be my grandma's cabin. You can see the shed behind us, and hopefully you'll be able to hear the creek, which is just over there. Here's the view from the cabin porch, and what you couldn't see, I was really hoping to be able to have this in the background, but the sun was right behind us. You can see it shining there in the background, and it just wasn't working out. But here's the creek that runs through our property. And it's just so peaceful here. I really don't want to leave. We've been struggling to find just the right place to sit up between the noise from the wind and the sunshine. It's been a bit of a struggle, but hopefully this will work out. So I've just driven my mom home after our trip to Norway, and we've come out to the cabins to pack up the last few things that need to be put away for winter. And I thought it would be a fun time to sit here and talk to my mom about her knitting journey. So hopefully you'll enjoy hearing about that. So welcome, Mom.
Thank you, Carol.
This seems a little awkward interviewing you.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's a new experience for me, for sure.
Both of us. So when do you remember first learning to knit, and do you remember who taught you?
I really don't remember the first time I learned to knit, or the first time I was interested in knitting. My mother was always knitting, mostly socks, and I remember sitting watching her and wondering how difficult it was to do, and thinking I might like to do it, but never stopping long enough to do it. And I don't really remember her teaching me. I do remember looking at a printed copy of how to knit and trying to make my fingers look like the fingers on the page.
Oh, and you and I have very different knitting styles.
We do.
I hold my needles very differently than you hold yours, even though my mom taught me to knit.
Now, my grandmother lived next door to us, and she had a spinning wheel and homemade carders, and she had a source for raw wool, and it always embarrassed us, my sisters and I. We'd come home from school and find raw wool hanging all along the picket fence because she would have washed it and put it out to dry. Mm-hmm. And we thought it looked quite tacky, but then she turned it into lovely soft yarn, and she knit socks, and she knit quickly. She knit without looking, like you do, which I can't do. And she turned out woolen socks for her grandsons. Probably one or in over a day or two. She was very fast.
Yeah, that is quick. I think Auntie Margie said, I don't know if it was her that used to walk across the fields going to get, what, the cows or sheep or something? Cows? And that she would knit as she was walking.
Yeah.
You remember that? This would have been in Manitoba?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
And she didn't bother dyeing the yarn. Like, I've only heard about all that over the years. She just used the raw wool and the natural color.
Yeah.
And knit quickly.
It's funny what's become, I don't know if fashionable is the right word, but popular now from a hobby standpoint was part of her everyday life and was done for utility more than probably, well, maybe she enjoyed it too, but it had a purpose other than what we think of when, at least for me, my knitting and crafting is more of a hobby than a necessity.
Well, she lived in rural Manitoba, and she was doing it to help her son, who was raising his own boys, and they didn't have much money, and they didn't have access to stores in the city to buy finished knitted socks. So she
Right.
knit socks to simply of necessity
Interesting.
to keep them warm.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know if she knits sweaters and vests and things. I never really recalled her doing that when she lived by us.
Just mostly socks.
Mostly socks.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And my first knitting project was a long, long scarf.
Oh, really?
Isn't that everybody's
Well, a
first
lot.
project?
It's such a boring first project, though, isn't it? Because it seems to go forever.
And it did, because I didn't know how to cast off. So, I also did spool knitting, which I like to do, but then I didn't like sewing it together.
Yeah, I
so
never knew what to do with those long lengths of what looks like I-cord.
Table mats.
Yeah.
Round table mats all over the place.
Is
and
that right?
Nobody liked them.
And you used that scrap yarn probably for that, as
Right.
we did. I remember having that growing up. I remember you teaching me to knit for brownies, because we had to do, for one of our levels, had to knit a square that got sewn into the blanket for the toadstool. And that's my earliest memory. And then I remember I remember knitting Barbie clothes. And now when I think back, one of my first items that I knit was a little skating dress in the round on double pointed needles, which I cannot stand using now, with fine, fine yarn. So that's the crazy thing, is I didn't really didn't do too much before I kind of got into the hard stuff, but I didn't know it was hard. I just wanted the finished item.
When I was younger, I can work out the math if I want to, but during the Second War, I remember we knit a lot of squares and turned them into a group, I guess, or a woman who put all these together and made blankets to send overseas.
Oh, I never knew that.
And we used scrap yarn. And they were all different sizes and shapes. They were supposed to be squares, but
Right.
sometime they took on an identity of their own.
One way of putting it.
Now, when I taught brownies to knit, it was quite different teaching someone to knit than to learn myself. And I know I taught brownies, and also you and your sisters and some of my granddaughters. And they all now knit better than I do. And
Well,
I don't know what happened to my skills, but they kind of faded during the years.
Well, I think your interest faded because, believe me, she has skills. She knit all of her grandchildren these very fine lace christening shawls and a layette, booties and a sweater and bonnets. And Mom also crochets, and she sewed at one time too. And during her last 5 years of working, she was going by bus to her work. And what did you make for us?
A tablecloth. I made one a year for 5 years, doing it only on the bus, coming and going to work. And they were fine patterns, small little flowers and clusters. And it was that lily white cotton, not fine, but neither
Fine
was it
enough.
fine enough.
I will show it to you when I'm editing this video, because I, of course, still have mine. As promised, here's the tablecloth that my mom crocheted for me over the course of a year. So she made all these little squares with this intricate lace and bauble design, and then finished it off with this edge here. And it's big. It's large enough to easily cover a large rectangular table. So definitely an heirloom to treasure. Thanks, Mom. And it's beautiful. It's a real heirloom.
Probably in the 80s, when heavy sweaters were popular in our part of the world,
the Cowichan sweaters.
And I knit 24 different sweaters over one winter, because people saw them, liked them, and wanted them.
I remember that. Yeah, it was mid-'80s.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they were mostly gray and white, and I could just buy a quantity of yarn and knit. I would do a stack of collars, and they would be all ready to be fitted together with the rest. Then I would do the bodies, and eventually put them all together and got them out to the people who wanted them. And I haven't seen a person wearing one of those for a long, long time. I guess
yeah.
they're not as popular as they once
Maybe
were.
as they once were. Yeah. I have vivid memories of going to bed at night with you in your rocking chair in the living room and getting up in the morning and you would still be there. And sometimes I wondered if you'd gone to bed in between.
Chances
But
are I
you
did.
you just stayed up late and had your quiet time and got up early to have your quiet time, right? But that's what I can remember. And back then I remember you knitting a lot of Afghans, some of which have made their way up here to the cabin in those 70s gold colors, avocado green and olive browns and things like that.
Yeah, in the more recent time, pardon me, in the more recent times, I gave up knitting children's sweaters and mitts and toques.
Although she made some amazing ones with intarsia, dinosaurs and things on the front, because our kids all had sweaters knit by my mom.
I started knitting Afghans for others, and I probably have knit over 100 Afghans, and just fill a box and drive to a care facility and leave them at the office and ask them to distribute them to whoever needed one or wanted one. And I've done that all over my community and this region. And I still love knitting Afghans better than anything else.
And everyone knows and gives her leftover yarn, and so you will never run out of yarn. But you like that. I think you enjoy trying out the different patterns and color combinations, things like that.
Now, I also made a lot of doll clothes for my children, and all girls, and they liked Barbie dolls, so I sewed lots of Barbie clothes, and I knit, but I would never knit a house coat or knit a skirt. I insisted that if I knit Barbie clothes, they would be legitimate sweaters and hats, so I did a number of those.
Yeah, teeny tiny
And that was
sweaters.
fine yarn on fine needles.
Yeah.
I guess I've tried various stitches in various ways, and now I keep it simple.
What do you knit most now?
Dishcloths and dog coats.
Every year at Christmas time, Mom has stacks of dishcloths tied together with ribbon, and they're kind of free for the taking. And I know my kids all take a stack and enjoy using them. So you kind of knit them all through the year, and then they're ready to go. And then dog coats. What was your fascination with dog coats? I'm curious.
I live in a community that has many dogs, many small dogs, and winter comes and it's very cold here. It will be 30 or 40 below for 2 or 3 weeks, and people take their dogs out for a walk, so I thought that might be a good item to sell at the craft table. And I just gathered up all my patterns and all my bits and pieces of yarn, and that was a popular thing to do. And I don't have to size them. I don't have a dog of my own.
Right.
So I just make small, medium, large, and they seem to go to the right people.
Again, a fun way to try out different patterns and color combinations.
And
Because you've knit
different
quite a
stitches.
few hats recently, too. For sale. You want to sell them,
Yes,
right?
I want to sell those.
Yeah. No, it's good.
It's a wonderful pastime, but I've never ever thought that I would like to do intricate shawls. I wasn't extremely keen on shawls or difficult patterns.
And yet those christening shawls, I don't have them. I'll see if I can find photographs of my kids. My albums are still packed away from moving, but those were not just simple, straightforward. They were beautiful and very fine, probably 2-ply yarn, very fine. I was able to dig out some of the photo albums. So here is Matthew on his christening shawl. You can see it was pretty intricate. And then here's Colin. He's also wearing his little sweater that Mom made. Oops, a bit of glare there. That might be better. You can see it's got a fancy border on it. And then here is Colin wearing one of the sweaters that my mom knit. So you have an idea of what she was up to during that period of her life. So let's move on to Norway. So why Norway?
Oh, goodness. I wanted to go to Norway in grade 4. That was a project in my social studies class, was to learn about a continent or country, and I chose Norway and always said I wanted to go there one day. And lo and behold, we've just come back from 10 days in Norway and had a wonderful time, but I had a close-up look at all the beautiful knitting in Norway.
Gorgeous sweaters, gorgeous sweaters.
Snowflake patterns and stars and rich colors. I noticed a lot of bright reds, blues, black backgrounds, beautiful pieces.
The sweaters and then the mittens and headbands and hats. It was really fun to look around and to see all of the gorgeous traditional type of patterns. What are the highlights of your trip?
Well, probably seeing the fjords up close, seeing how the mountains are sheer cliffs and they come right down to the water, and seeing the little farmhouses dotted all over the hillside.
Just these little ledges, and these families eked out a living from these farms. We learned that only 3% of land in Norway is arable, and so if there was a patch available, someone claimed it, and yeah, it was just crazy to see high up there, and you couldn't tell that, but there are roads that would lead up to them now, but they just looked like they were just perched up there, all isolated.
Which they were. We saw lots and lots of sheep, which didn't surprise me. Not all white, woolly, fuzzy sheep. Some were black and brown, and very few horses, and some cattle, but mostly sheep. And of course, the altitude and the waterfalls, they were spectacular.
The waterfalls and more waterfalls. They're beautiful.
And highways with hairpin bends, hairpin turns that climbed higher and higher and higher to the top of the world. It's quite a view from the top when you look down on the valley with all the little fields marked off by rows of bushes and streams, lots of water. It was a very good trip.
It was. Yeah, well worth taking. But it must be good to be home. Or it's going to feel good to get home.
I haven't slept in my own bed yet, so it will be good to get home.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. I've thought about doing this for a long time, so I'm glad that we finally had the chance. And
we took the opportunity, and there's nobody here but us and the magpies. And they're not going to tell anybody how things were going.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.